Morning, afternoon, 2 minutes past 12. I'm going to give a slightly different view. I've just sat through a couple of presentations this morning which have been tremendous. They really are focusing on the what. And what I want to talk about a little bit differently is the how. So there are fantastic product providers outside who will be able to talk about all the impacts of the actual products and services. But I think it's equally important to talk about the how, because this is an investment. It's a message I'm hearing a lot. It's a business opportunity. It isn't a cost. And I think that's a really important distinction to make, because this needs to be signed off at CEO level, at SMT level. So it is a business opportunity. So you need to make sure that whatever you're investing in, you're getting a return. And I'll use the analogy for well-being as engagement, because there's something happening in engagement more broadly in the industry. We worked with a company called Employee Feedback, and we actually held a survey with them earlier this year. And this is a survey of surveys. So these are the results of over 300,000 people. And by definition, these companies are pretty good at engagement, because they're involving a third party to help them with their engagement view. And the trend isn't great. So the scores are quite high, but the trend is down. And we brought this right up to date with a pulse survey on social media in March, which showed this had dropped even further. So there is a significant challenge around engagement. And I think two things happened this week. I saw the article in the Times around where we are as a nation, that actually our real income level is below what it was 10 years ago, which is quite a scary thing. On average, the economy should drift up 2% a year. We've actually gone backwards 0.3% from 10 years ago. There's only two other economies in the OECD area who've done that. That's Greece and Portugal. So we really do have an issue. And the author of that piece was David Smith from the Sunday Times. And his view, we worked with David earlier in the year, and his view is that the one thing that he thinks can unlock the productivity challenge is a focus on people. And to bring this alive, I don't know if any of your organizations were part of that survey, but to bring this alive, if you think of a task that any business has to do, and we compare how we do it in the UK to how it's done across the world, we come out really poor. So we all start work on a Monday morning, and we start at 9 o'clock and we finish at 5 p.m. Start at 9 a.m. on a Monday, finish at 5 p.m. on a Friday. The Germans have finished at about 1:30 on Thursday afternoon. Even the Italians, sorry, I shouldn't say even the Italians, but economies that you may think have got a different approach to productivity are outperforming us. So the huge improvement in employment levels are coming hand in hand with a decrease in real wages and output. And I think Alex this morning came up with that amazing instinct. So the difference really can be put down to engagement. That is going to make all the difference to the UK economy. So each company can benefit from this approach. And I think 100% improvement against the market over a 28-year period is a prize certainly worth going for. We worked with 10 leaders earlier in the year to produce the Business of Engagement report. And we'll leave this point just really driven on the fact that people are the key to driving productivity. And I think that allows you to go back to your organizations and get CEO and SMT support for whichever program you wish to go through. Because what that piece of research proved to us is what we already know. It's instinctively right that treating our people greatly gets great results. And we can go across a whole host of surveys, whether it's the University of Warwick, whether it was the inspiring speeches we had at Keynote this morning about the business impact of focusing on people. So I think that's the end of the first bit. Because the message about the what and the how is a cascade from well-being all the way through to improving the fortunes of us as a nation, but certainly as a company. that well-being equates to happiness, that drives up engagement, that ultimately leads to output. I said I wouldn't talk about the what so much. I think these three icons mirror what we think about at a personal group. It is about the balance between physical, emotional, and financial. I think those three things in harmony start to frame a well-being strategy. I'm guessing from the early Slido results this morning, many of you are already well down the road to this. And there's some fun things you can do at little or no cost. Water, all this water around, right? Encourage your staff to drink water. 2 litres apparently, which sounds a lot, but 4 bottles, right? That's going to give an almost instantaneous health impact. Not much of a cost, just to get the message out. Things like EAP programs, the return on investments are clear. So if that becomes the triangle of wellness, what I want to talk about is the bit that sits underneath, which is the communication aspect of any well-being program. Because I've seen companies, and maybe you can think of your own, where you have created programs or invested in products or services, and you simply haven't got the output that you thought you would get. It hasn't taken root. It hasn't become embedded in the organization or integrated, as Peter said this morning at Anglia. And we think that the key difference is about communication. And if you think about how people start to buy into programs and change, you start off with an awareness. And again, think about what your employees would say if you ask them a question, which is, what do you think about your EAP program? What do you think about your financial wellness advice? The first statement might be, what EAP? So the first thing is they don't even know. And don't underestimate this, that people, you might put a brilliant program in place, but employees simply do not know it exists. So you invest in the awareness, and then they understand. So then it's like, oh, EAP, yeah, I read that email. What's an EAP? So you have to focus on the understanding element of it. Then people understand. And then you get into the real meat of the issue. People start to participate. So people will make that phone call. They will apply for a fair value loan. They will start to drink 2 litres of water. And you start to get the impact. And the impact can be huge. If you've had any employees with serious trauma who've used an EAP, you'll understand the benefit that that can have at that moment in time. And then what happens is something magical. They become advocates. And how many times have you said to a colleague, you must try this app, you must go into this store, you must look at this thing? That's the most powerful way that you can get communication and get participation, is to get your advocates. And then the communication job becomes much, much easier. So I would ensure that you start to think about awareness and understanding. Only at that point can you get participation. And I think communication falls into 2 key camps. A little bit old school, I quite like face-to-face. Or the fantastic survey that says the people who like face-to-face are old people like me and millennials. It's brilliant. They appreciate face-to-face because it's a bit different and unusual if you're a millennial. And for me, it's the way that I was brought into the workplace. Think about your face-to-face. I saw a brilliant presentation. Lucy Beresford, she's on LBC Radio. She deals with relationship stuff mainly, but she spoke at a conference I was at last month. And she said the number one thing that you can do as a business to an employee is listen. Just listen. Just have that emotional feeling that you speak to anyone in your business and they're listening to you. Now, of course, if you listen, you should do something about that. But the fact that you're engaging, this active listening to someone, can make all the difference in the world. So your face-to-face stuff, don't underestimate it. It can be through a supplier. So ask your suppliers, like us, like your EAP provider, what can you do to help drive the awareness and the understanding on a face-to-face? It could be a town hall. It could be one-to-ones. So I'm a big fan of face-to-face. But the biggest change that's going on is technology. And the way we are consuming information, particularly for the Gen Yers, is around technology. And something interesting is happening with regards to technology in terms of the platform that's being used, in terms of the way people wish to receive this. Because this is the 10th anniversary of something quite special. Can you everyone guess what happened in June 2007? iPhone. So before, those of you who can remember workplaces before 2007, it was a bit different. Everyone wasn't like that all of the time. It changed everything. And I had such great fun doing some research into this talk around how iPhones are being used, how smartphones are being used. 31% of people with smartphones don't use them to make calls on a regular basis. It's a phone. It's not, but it's not. It's not. And this changed it. There were smartphones before, but nothing like this. And the number one thing, the only thing to take away from this session is what has happened since then. Since the NFL game at Wembley. Everyone's got one. Who's got a smartphone? Who hasn't got a smartphone in the room? Yeah, you're not going to put your hand up anyway, are you? Everyone's got one. Everyone. Every single person has a smartphone. And then you get into the really, really fun stats, which I actually made notes on my iPhone to look cool, but I wrote them down as well. And I got a graphic to help me. This is what actually a day in the life of a smartphone user can look like. Are you one of those people who wakes up and checks their messages within 5 minutes? About 1 in 3 of you do that. Are you one of the 81% who use it while watching TV? I'm one of them. Are you one of the 78% who use it going to and from work? What about having dinner with family? 2/3. What percentage of time in a day do people use smartphones for? I've got 2 surveys. One says it's 3.5 hours, one says it's 5 hours. If you work it out, and 90% of the time there's a difference between smartphones and desktops. Desktops you'll browse, smartphones you'll use apps. You spend 1 month a year looking at apps. It sounds bonkers, but it's true. It's become our remote control for life. I challenged myself last week. I talked to a client about this yesterday. He was older than me. He was disgusted. I travelled in London without a wallet last week. Booked my car parking through an app, got my train line ticket, went on the tube with my Apple Watch, paid for my lunch, no cash, no wallet, right? People are embracing this. It's the way we live. And there's some fabulous apps out there, really fabulous apps. But there's 2 million of them on the App Store alone. There was 194 billion downloads of apps in the last 12 months, right? There's a plethora of them. So it has to be good. It has to be something that you're going to want to go to, otherwise it'll end up being a clutter on there. And what I'm starting to see is people using this insight for their well-being strategy. So to bring it alive, if you imagine something around financial awareness, many of our clients have relatively low-paid employees, and they worry about things like dying and who's going to pay for that. So companies like us will invest in death in service. It's a fairly common benefit. Don't know how many people are aware, don't know how many people understand. But what if you put it onto the app and allowed you to put the information on there that people can review in own time, and then have a call to action, which is to put your expression of wish filled in on a smartphone at home, sent back. No nasty forms, no having to go and ask anyone, no embarrassment that you don't actually know what death in service means. Using the fact that the way we live our life is through an app. You broaden it out slightly and think about, again, financial. A lot of people want to this is a great story, which I think shows the difference in business. When I worked for Barclays, you had to obey the rules at all times, otherwise you got sacked. Whereas this example is a care home who were trying to fill slots. You imagine a care home, you've got lots of slots to fill, you have sickness and absence, how are you going to fill that time in? One care centre manager had the vision, let's use WhatsApp. He created a WhatsApp group, sent out a message. HR found out, called him in. What do you think you're doing? That's not corporate guidelines. No. Thought, that's brilliant. So what if you could send a push notification out on a Saturday morning with an available slot? Answer this immediately. I get my slot, I'm working on Sunday, I've got my extra money, I'm taking some pressure off me. This is my favourite because I'm getting on a bit now. But I love EAP programs. Love them. I've seen the impact they can have. But I'm not mad keen on talking to people about things because I'm British and I'm a man and I'm a bit old, so I don't want to talk to anyone. Certainly not at work. Probably not at home either. I'll carry it around, right? These are the stereotypes, but it's true. So what better way to access that than I get my EAP through my app when I'm sat in my armchair, in my study at home at 11:30 at night when there's no one else around. I can get my advice in my time, at a time of my choosing. Relaxed, in control, able to process it, not pressured in my environment. We're living our lives through these apps. And I think we can treat our employees as consumers. So think about your well-being strategy being delivered across those two areas. What can you do from a face-to-face perspective, and how can we support it using the best technology that's available? I've summarized it in a leaflet, which we've got outside. Just some of these top tips, just to think about it. But all I would ask you to do, to take away from this little talk, is consider this a business opportunity. It isn't a cost. Stop talking about costs. Start thinking about it as an opportunity. Use the triangle of wellness as a framework, or another framework if you prefer one. But just have 3 or 4 things that you can do, and do one thing in each. Just start out with one financial, one emotional, one physical. Could be as simple as encouraging people to drink water. But have a plan and start from there as a template. Think about your comms plan. If people aren't aware and understand, they won't use. So really focus at the very beginning of the communications journey, and you'll end up with advocates. But be bold, invest in it. The great thing, I forgot to say it, the great thing about everyone having a mobile phone is you now have the most sophisticated communications network in the history of mankind. My phone is £929. It's a supercomputer. Your employees will allow you to communicate with them through this, because they don't want another phone, they don't want to use a desktop. They want to sit down at 10:30 at night and have a chance to review their well-being options. Use it. Use the fact that there's a network already in place that's not going to cost you a penny to access. Invest in a communications plan that allows you to talk to your employees just like they're being spoken to by other companies as consumers. That's it from me. Thank you.
Fabulous, David. I think we've got about 2 minutes for questions. So I've got the Slido out and there's some great questions coming through. The one I want to pick up is, what is your recommended approach to communications across a geographically diverse, not very tech-savvy workforce?
Yeah, we are, again, I promise Debbie, this isn't about Personal Group, but we do have a fundamental belief in face-to-face. So we know that some people are not tech natives. I'm not. I've had to learn it, and we know there are many employees who do that. The best way is just to sit down with people and invest 10, 15 minutes explaining what the strategy is and letting them understand how they can access these products or services. There's probably still a requirement for you to be able to offer non-technical delivery. EAPs are telephone-based. We're seeing some brilliant products around GP referrals being done via FaceTime and Skype, okay? People just have to get over the fact that it's not that scary. And the only way to do it is to hold their hand, talk to them face to face, and bring them with you. But you'll probably still have to have a non-tech solution if your workforce is a little scared of tech.
Right, probably time for one more question, quick one. How can you get well-being messages across among all the other messages within an organisation?
Well, it's up to you in terms of what you want to prioritise. I think there is a movement outside of the workplace around mindfulness. I think what's going on with the royal family in terms of the princes getting involved in mental strength and resilience is hugely helpful. And I think it's a taboo that's been broken down. I would prioritise it because if you go back to what David Smith said, we're going to get the best out of our organisations and make our businesses better if our people are better. And there's an inextricable link, an undeniable link between improving overall well-being and the outputs that come out the other side. So I would challenge you back to say what is more important than employee well-being.
Brilliant. Thank you very much,
Okay.
David. I'm going to tie it up then. Yeah, big round of applause for David.
Thank you.